suffering. Just like you are.
Welcome to the Filmcast review of Steven Soderbergh's Presence. I'm going to read the plot summary of this movie from the internet. A family moves into a new house only to become convinced they are not alone. Now, I first saw this movie at Sundance last year, like a year ago. And I had already heard when I read about the movie in the program that the hook of the film is it's a ghost story from the first person perspective of the ghost.
Lovely.
Jeff Kanata, who has great powers to remain unsullied and not read up on movie premises or anything like that, was able to get to the movie theater a year after the movie's premiere.
That's right.
And not know what the premise was. And so, Jeff Kanata, I want to start with you because I want to hear what your experience was, because I went to go see the movie again this weekend in preparation for this conversation. And I was watching it and I was thinking to myself, Jeff probably doesn't know what the premise is. And I was trying to watch it through the eyes of someone who doesn't know what the premise is. And I was like, it might take me a while to figure out what the hell is actually going on in this thing. No?
Did you get it? Like, it kind of gets there.
Did you get it like right
pretty
away?
Fast.
Yeah, did you get it right away? What was your experience watching? Like, what was the moment you realized this is a ghost story from the first person perspective of the ghost?
Well, I knew that we were in. I mean, the very first shot of the movie is like, first person perspective, like wandering through a house, looking out a window, wandering.
Yeah.
The movie is called Presence. That's also a big clue.
That's true too. Yeah, it was not a long mystery. Let's put it that way. It felt like, we're a roving camera.
Yeah.
We're kind of observing people. It didn't feel. I didn't know that we were. I think it became pretty clear pretty quick.
Got it. Okay, so all that said, Jeff Kanata, what did you think of Steven Soderbergh's Presence?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say what I thought of Steven Soderbergh's Presence is best summed up in the form of a limerick.
Let's hear it.
This movie sure thinks itself neat. A first-person camera conceit. The dumb script makes it clear. Presents ain't here. These presents should have gift receipts.
Wow.
You were not a fan of this one.
This is an early contender for least favorite movie of the year.
Wow.
We're starting the year off strong, Jeff. Yeah.
I think this movie is absolutely terrible. Terrible. You guys, I've mentioned this before. I went to college and got a degree in theater. That means I was involved. I was liberal arts college. I was involved very intensely with the film department as well. Film department, theater department, simpatico. That means I also had a roommate and good friend who was in the film department. That means I saw a lot of student films.
Oh, I hear you. Yes.
This is about as good as some of the worst student films that I watched in college. It reminded me of that experience. This movie is dumb. And it bums me out because I love Lucy Liu. I love that she popped up in this. I love that she's doing work that's sort of outside what you tend to think of as a Lucy Liu role, you know? I think it's a cool phase of her career she's moved into, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm rooting for her to do interesting, cool roles. Boy, this movie is insultingly bad, in my opinion. In order to sort of get into it, we need to get to spoilers, but I was trying obliquely to reference here in my limerick.
The Robert Zemeckis movie, right?
Which, yes, of last year, which I really liked, and it has a similarly in-your-face conceit.
Well, they both take place in similar style houses, I think. They both take place over multiple periods of time, and they both the action in both films play out in long, continuous takes.
And they're confined. They're confined to that house. Yeah.
Right. And the camera itself is conspicuous, right?
Yep.
You are aware of
Yep.
where the camera is, what the camera is doing in both these movies. So I feel like it's an easy comparison to make. And for me, here is interesting, really relies on, I think, excellent performances to sort of sell the idea. And I think a sharp script that maybe is a little sentimental, but at least doesn't insult your intelligence. Maybe you guys might disagree. I think Devindra might. I found this movie to be the worst indulgence of a gimmicky idea, that literally there's nothing here except the gimmicky idea. And even the gimmicky idea is not, I don't think, is worth the entire endeavor. Like, this movie is an hour, 25 minutes.
Yeah,
It
it's not that long.
stretches to get that. It is so preposterous. I don't like any of the people in this film. I don't care about any of what happens to them. They're all obnoxious.
Even the kind-hearted dad, Jeff, that just wants the best for his family. That's
Maybe
you,
the
Jeff.
maybe the most obnoxious character.
Wow.
Everyone, like, this was a struggle for me to endure. How insultingly bad. And we'll get, for me, the real crescendo of my distaste for this movie is the climax of the film. So I will wait until spoilers to hate on that. But it is like, I cannot believe it feels like the most amateurish movie I can imagine. Everything. I mean, it feels really bad pretty much on every level. Like, technically, it does not feel sophisticated. Like, I'm sure the techniques used to have this kind of first person camera are sophisticated, but the movie doesn't feel that way on the screen. To me, it feels amateurish. It feels like we're, it's all natural lighting. Okay, great. But man, everything feels like video. It feels, there's literally nothing about this movie that I liked other than a few lovely moments with Lucy Liu.
Oh man,
Devindra, it's gonna be up to you and me to defend this one.
It's not gonna be that hard. What is the opposite of yucking your yum? Because that's exactly what I need to. I need to like find
Yumming
the
my
fun.
yuck?
Yeah, yumming your yuck, I guess.
That sounds gross.
If I wasn't around for the opening of this episode, but if I were, my opening statement was, if the camera and Robert Zemeckis' were to have a nemesis, it would be Steven Soderbergh's presence. And I immediately thought of here, and how much better this movie was on every single level, because it wasn't just confined to like that one thing, or at least as a storyteller, like Soderbergh is doing interesting things here. And I think it's a really interesting cinematic exercise. I don't think the first person view of it actually is as good as something like Nickel Boys, which is freaking revolutionary, should have been nominated for an Oscar. That movie looks incredible. Like, that perspective of first person is something I've never really seen before. This just feels like, Soderbergh has a camera on a gimbal, right? And at times you can even feel like you can see the gimbal movements. I can almost see him doing the specific gimbal walk you have to do so you don't shake the camera too much. Like, it feels like, I know you're a guy behind the camera. I think that gets in the way of it, but at the same time, I think it's still a really compelling and spooky family genre. People are talking about like how unique this conceit is. It's been done before. I've talked about this before, but friend of the show, Vincenzo Natali's movie Haunter, the 2013 movie, is exactly the same premise as this, actually. And really, really fun movie. You should check that out. But I think the idea of it is cool. It takes a bit of getting used to, just being in this first person framing. But no, I found like the way this movie was telling its story is really it's really interesting. I think the sort of setup into like how spooky it was interesting as well. And I also I think I really just understood this family. Like, to me, this movie, it's not a perfect script. It's a David Koepp script, and sometimes it gets a little Koeppy, but it's not nearly as like whatever the hell was happening with here. Like, I feel like I understand these characters. They may be archetypes, but I also kind of know them immediately. I know Lucy Liu's mom and why I disliked her character immediately. I know the like jockey brother and like what he's up to, but they all kind of have distinct personalities and also distinct motivations in terms of what they're doing. I found that really interesting. The idea of, you were a ghost watching this family, drama unfold, I thought was just really like very interesting. The movie gets a little more and more spooky over time. there's not really a scary movie. What's funny is that at times it feels like the camera itself is afraid of the humans seeing it. Like there's some really fun things happening there, sort of like twisting what we expect from a haunted house movie. I know, Jeff, like you're not into ghost stories and supernatural stuff too. So
I love supernatural stuff.
Ghost stories, Jeff. We've talked a lot about how you think it's all bullshit. So I don't know.
Well,
Yes.
definitely that's true. But that doesn't
Yeah,
mean
so-
I don't want to see a movie about it. I also think superpowers are bullshit, but I love movies about them.
Oh, you would love superpowers though. Like,
I mean, I'd love to have
You
them. I don't
wish
think
they
they're
were real.
real.
All right.
yeah.
Sorry, Devindra, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah,
Or-
I think I think this movie's fantastic. It does kind of it gets a little like overwrought by the end. There's a character who's like so stereotypically kind of evil and teen angsty that I think it's kind of hilarious. But I also think it's a really great exercise. The core family, I think, is doing great work here. Like these are long takes. These are really interesting scenes and really like tough scenes at times too for them. So I kind of get the sense of what you're feeling, Jeff, that it feels a little experimental. It feels a little student filmy. That is Steven Soderbergh, right? This is the guy who kind of
Sometimes.
started with Sex, Lies, and Videotape and gave like his whole thing is that he's more experimental, more verite, more indie than people even in the 90s. And I kind of love the fact that he's getting older, technology's progressing. He's still taking wild swings. Like he's making normal movies too. They don't all work, but I look at this as something like sort of like Kimmy, which also he co-wrote with David Koepp, or that was the David Koepp script, but also really interesting use of like, okay, we're going to do like a self-contained pandemic movie that's a little isolated, but also a thriller. I really liked Kimmy. I like the conceit of this, and I kind of like the construction of it. Also, very nice house. I've been looking at houses for a long time, and nice house. It's a nice kitchen. It's well done, like craftsman style house, I
Great
guess.
kitchen.
Great
We can
kitchen.
agree on that. Great
Lovely
kitchen.
house. I do like that there is a third floor to the house that we just never discussed because it would be too tough to get the camera up there without like bumping into things. We just never go to the attic. There's some conceits
Which we
in
know
this movie.
ghosts never go in the attic.
Yeah,
Ghosts never go to the attic. So yeah, I love this. Like that's my
Wow,
overall.
I'm
I love
shocked.
this movie. I think it is well made. I think it's compelling. I think the actors are great. I think the characters are compelling. It's just like, it's cool. Like I was so thrilled watching this. And also I was thrilled like being in a normal audience who were like, they were talking during the trailers and stuff. And this movie just starts, right? There's no, you get the studio logo that just starts, your camera looking out the window. Everything's quiet. You're walking downstairs. You're walking back up. The audience hushes. And it's just like you are trained. The movie is training you how to watch it. I love that experience too. And it's like, this is not a normal movie. You kind of have to watch it differently, and I really appreciate that.
I overall like the movie as well. I think that Jeff, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Sorry. You're muted.
I'm
Your
sorry, I
presence-
was
the
just-
presence,
I-
the presence
I-
has muted you.
Yes.
Yeah, clearly. I'm like, I can't. I feel like we all watched a different movie. I don't understand how you guys.
Sometimes
can
this
both like
happens.
movie.
This
Yeah.
is also me in the review of Here, a movie that you guys vigorously defended. I'm like,
So
yeah,
all right. I like it more as an exercise, as a filmmaking exercise,
Sure,
more than
sure.
I do as like an overall film. I find myself fascinated by all the filmmaking decisions that were made. For instance, like what is the focal length
Mhm.
that he chose to make the ghost? And by the way, answer to that question, like relatively wide angle. And
Has to be
Yeah,
wide.
it's all
so-
fisheye.
so
Kind of.
Yeah,
wide,
yeah.
it's like there's distortion at the edges. And
It's
so,
like
when-
what, 16 or 18
characters-
millimeter? Yeah.
Probably between like 16 and 24 is my guess. But like
Yeah.
when the characters are at the edges of the frame, they're distorted. It just looks weird.
Mhm.
I appreciated like that it was done in long takes. And I was really impressed by the sound design.
Yeah.
Which I know is like underappreciated, but like
Yep.
the person in the camera is moving throughout the house. You never hear them. You hear everything else in the house: sound from outside, people walking through the house, voices. You'd never hear the person who's like, presumably has the gimbal and the whatever walking through the house.
It's Soderbergh. It's Soderbergh
Yeah,
always
Soderbergh,
being
yeah,
his own
yeah.
cinematographer.
And
yeah.
that was actually really impressive to me. And obviously, there's some.
I heard
like,
he wore martial arts shoes, like the soft, like kung fu shoes.
Nice.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a
it's
smooth
cool.
move.
It's cool.
That's
So
just
anyway,
cool.
The way that
We didn't
they
need no AI. Steven Soderbergh had soft shoes.
Okay.
That's it.
They were able to execute the premise, I think, on a fundamental level, and I think that's pretty cool. I think the idea of ghosts is pretty absurd, like just in general. Jimmy O Yang in his comedy special talked about ghosts, and he was saying how you notice how ghosts never haunt an apartment complex because if they did, you could just move the hell out of that thing, or like you could just break your lease and just get out.
That's not true at all. But
I mean,
yeah. In terms of like reported stories of hauntings or whatever.
That's what I'm saying is like,
yeah.
It's more compelling if it's a house, because it's like you can't just leave the house because you own that. There's a connection between you and the house.
Sure.
Whereas if it's like your 1-bedroom studio, it's like I'm just gonna move across town to the next 1-bedroom studio.
That requires money.
Yeah,
people don't always have money. Yeah,
yeah, that's true.
Yes.
But anyway, I think like in general, the idea of ghosts is pretty absurd. They stick around on this earthly plane. They can see you. They can move around. They're unhappy for some reason, and then they have like an extremely limited set of powers. They can like move books and shit and close doors and stuff, and that's about it. Like that's they can shake things around. Like that's their whole thing.
The father in this movie says something at one point. There is mystery in this world. That's all he says. And I was like, you know what? That's kind of the wavelength. It's like,
sure,
you don't have to be like a full on ghosty, but just the movie presents that idea. Like you don't understand everything.
Okay, So if we take all the ghost stories we've heard, like again, they have a limited set of actions that they can do, and it's kind of a pretty silly and arbitrarily constrained set of actions. And what this movie does is like, what if we took that idea really seriously? What if like you were this creature that could only do these things? You were like wandering around, you can only do these things. And it's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, I wonder what I would do if I was a ghost. It invites you into the subjective point of view of the ghost, and you're wondering to yourself, what is the ghost thinking? Like, what? And now, I do think the way this movie ends, like, really undermines a lot of that, because I
think it enhances that. But
the point is, like the problem is, well, let me put it this way.
Yep.
Throughout the movie, you're in the perspective of the ghost, but you don't know what the ghost is thinking, or even who the ghost is.
Yes.
And I guess that's also true in quote unquote real life. Like ghosts often don't know. In the popular imagination, ghosts often like don't know why they're here, and
they present that in the movie. Is like
the movie straight up tells you who the ghost is very early.
No.
Now I know you didn't understand. Like, let's talk about it during spoilers. But suffice to say, that is not correct, Jeff. And I had the same misunderstanding as you when I first saw the film, but we can talk about it at the end of during the spoiler section. But anyway, I appreciated how much I'm just really into filmmaking exercises like this, and
that's what Soderbergh does.
This is the ultimate form of subjective filmmaking, where you're in the perspective of the thing, and it just makes you like ask certain questions about like, how would the ghost operate? What would the ghost be thinking in the situation?
Oh, we need to get into spoilers, because all of the stuff that you're talking about, I'm like, what movie were you watching?
Yeah. So, and then
and
the only other thing I'm going to mention before we get to spoilers is, and I don't think this is a spoiler because it's revealed extremely early on, is there's some incestuous vibes going on in this family, and I appreciated that the movie did not shy away from that. Like I'll say I know families that have that kind of vibe, and it's cool that the movie put that stuff on screen.
I don't know if incestuous is the word I'd use, but there are. It
was pretty incestuous, but anyway,
the word is obsessive, maybe, or a little overbearing. It really gets the sort of like a parent being overbearing and really focusing on one kid to the point where this is unhealthy. This is actually probably not good for you and the child. One thing I'll point out before we get to spoilers, this ghost is very good at framing scenes. It sure is good at standing in the exact right spot.
It knows to like run, like when there's dialogue happening in another room. It's like I gotta get to the other room. Gotta get to the other room to see that. Anyway, Devindra and I both big fans of this movie. Well, I mean, Devindra's a big fan. I'm a fan. I wouldn't say I'm a big fan. I liked it more than I loved it, and Jeff basically hated it. All right.
Yeah.
Let's get to spoilers for Presence starting right now. So, Jeff.
Yeah.
First time I watched the movie, I thought the exact same thing as you.
You thought it was a friend?
Didn't figure it out until I like started reading about the movie this time around and watching.
Mm.
But the idea throughout the movie is you are led to believe
Mhm.
that it is the daughter's friend.
Yes,
Right? Like the
she
ghost
assumes
is the
it
daughter's.
is. Yeah.
She assumes it is the daughter's friend. Now that
The
is actually
other girls that he gleefully murdered. Oh, he's so evil.
yes. Now that is actually not what is the case. That is not at least the main interpretation that people have of the movie. That is
Mhm.
not the case.
Okay.
The real answer, which I think you will think is actually even stupider, is that it is actually the son's ghost.
They show you at the end.
They show you at the end. Now I thought when I first saw the movie, I thought, oh, that's a new ghost now. Different.
No,
different ghost.
The
But
medium says,
I know they explain.
yeah,
The medium says the ghost is out of time.
it's out of time.
It's
yes.
it's in a place. It's in a time that it's not supposed to be.
Which is a cool concept.
No,
it's
I
not.
kind of.
I
It's
mean,
not a cool concept.
I
It
just
is
think
in
it's-
fact stupider.
I mean, it makes
Just
it makes absolutely no sense because
That's right.
why would the ghost know to like is the ghost creating a new timeline? Because presumably the reason the ghost knew to stop the sister from getting killed is because she must have gotten killed already.
this does open up a time paradox.
Stupidest thing.
So then by stopping her from being killed, is he creating a new timeline? Now, look,
Yeah.
I know the time stuff doesn't make a lick of sense. However, what I do appreciate is it does put the ghost in this very conventional, well-known situation of
Mhm.
it needs to prevent a wrong from happening.
And
right?
also, I like it doesn't understand what it is early on.
Right,
or
it
who
doesn't
it
understand.
is.
That's right. So that part is accurate. I
Yeah.
shouldn't have
But
said that during the main review.
That invalidates literally all the rules of ghosts.
It's making its own rules, man.
It's making its own rules.
Yes,
making its
which
own
are
rules.
dumb
Forging
its own
rules.
path.
Dumb
forging
rule.
its own path.
It is contrived to try to get you to that puzzle box.
Jeff,
of like,
I will
who's the
say-
least likely
Hold on,
person
let
for it
him
to
finish,
be?
yeah.
Oh, it's the brother who really always hates her and gives her a hard time. Wow, actually, he really loves her and tried to stop her from getting murdered.
Yes.
Dumb.
I will say, if you were watching anything, a story that presents a conceit, just like this is how we're telling the story. There's a lot of things in fiction and Shakespeare and comics that are stupid as hell, but you kind of go with it to get the story. And I actually think, like in this case, I always like the idea of a spirit or a presence being unstuck in time, because time is just a dimension. Guys, like time is just a dimension. In physics, we have there are a lot of ideas where things don't even like respond to the dimensionality of time. You think of like the end of Interstellar, which is the whole point of that movie is he's going to higher dimension, and the higher dimensional beings are helping him interact with the previous time. I like the concept. I like that it kind of brings it up, and it kind of makes the movie more rewarding if you actually just accept like that's kind of what they're doing. But it makes the movie more rewarding where it's like the spirit. I love a twist where it's like you go back and rewatch the entire movie with that framing in mind, right? It's like the Sixth Sense.
That's one of the things that I would say is a failing of this reading. If this is really what the movie is trying to attempt, then it doesn't achieve what you just said. There should be stuff in the movie where I'm like, man, boy, that ghost sure seems obsessed with the brother in some way, or man, it sure is lingering on things the brother cares about. Why does it have such a constant obsession with the brother's POV? And never any of those feelings.
So I
actually agree with Jeff on that point. I think the way the movie handles the brother is not consistent with the ghost being the brother.
I think you're also juggling in the idea that this ghost does not know who it is. Right, It doesn't know what it is or what it's doing. It's a story.
It doesn't know the twist either. So how could it have?
But Jeff,
it
like,
finds out
go
the
with
twist
it at
at
a
the
certain
end.
point. At a certain point, you kind of have to roll with like the rules they're laying out.
Ghosts. I mean, look at the Sixth Sense. Like, it's true that ghosts often don't know what the hell they're doing. Like it's been a common thing throughout all history.
Compare this movie to The Sixth Sense.
But Jeff,
it's
like
very
in the Sixth
similar.
Sense,
Yes,
literally, he says ghosts, dead people appear. They don't know why they're here. That's literally one of the iconic lines from the movie. Like
that is the folklore of ghosts.
I love it. But now we're also they don't know sometimes they can time travel to before they were dead.
Well, it's not time traveling. They do not exist within the linear framework of our time. It's not time traveling.
There's never been a ghost story. The premise of Ghost, like there's no framing for me to guess this. Because
the movie tells you
a ghost story has never involved the ghosts seeing its own murder before it happens. Right? That's just not how ghost stories tend to work. The ghost starts its work after the death.
Okay,
You
right?
can do
That-
you
that
can
I
do
will
this.
give you-
You
that I
can
will
do
give
this
you-
however you want.
yeah.
Spoiler for Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Hill House, but does that same conceit really, really well. There's a ghost haunting a character throughout the entire movie. Spoiler, it's herself. It's herself dying and haunting her past
Yeah.
the entire time.
It
you
happens.
can do this. You
It
can,
happens.
if you are a good enough storyteller, I think you can write these things in.
I
So
agree
I'm not
with that sentence. If
so
you
let
are
me
a
let me
good
go
enough
back.
storyteller.
Let me go back to what I was saying though about what the ghosts like kind of like being a part of this family. I do think it's actually interesting to go back and watch how the ghost has like an interest in the daughter character. It's sort of like bonded with this character. It's a little protective. It's picking up her books and like being a little protective. After a while, it almost feels like a sense of regret of like you are looking at this jock who is a piece of shit. This person grows up to be an adult and will be some sort of asshole who is like abusing people through their whole lives. Maybe they get better. I don't know. But I like how this movie kind of sets it up like, oh, he's just like a selfish jerk who's enabled by his obsessive mother who thinks he's the greatest person on earth. And he's an asshole. His sister is going through so much. He has no empathy for her. The father is like, I wish I had a better son, almost. Like the father has a great line. There's a great man in you. I'd love to meet him someday. And that just feels like that's one of those things is like to be disappointed by your son who is such a darling thing. Anyway, I think the way the ghost acts over time is like protective of the sister. When she's getting when the son himself is being a huge asshole, that's when the ghost runs up and trashes his room at like the worst possible point. Like I think it does intersect. And it does change how you kind of view those actions throughout the film. So yeah.
I'm just glad we can.
Go ahead.
I'm just glad we can all agree that the two most evil people are blonde boys and Asian moms. You know, like that's really
and the
what
sons
this movie...
Asian moms enable apparently. the first sons, yeah.
I'm just joking.
I mean, the blonde boy being cartoonishly evil. That whole sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Also, am I the only one that is furious that this movie established that the ghost could knock the orange juice out of her hand one time, but not the second time? Why not just do the same damn thing again? She has the orange juice.
Yeah,
the ghost knows it's been drugged. The ghost knocked it out of her hand once.
Well, it not out of her. It knocked it off the
it knocked it off the
whatever.
So it's like a very small lift. But yeah. Who knows? Who knows? We don't know.
Do that again. Keep doing that.
Just do that again. It'd be nice.
Don't let her drink it.
As I said earlier, Jeff, I would describe the ghost's power set in general throughout history as maddeningly inconsistent. You know, and that's it's built into the ghost lore. Like I'm not just making this up.
The movie just showed us it could do something.
I'm not literally just making this up out of to defend
the idea that a ghost can interact with the physical world
is
is like
watch any horror movie. Like ghosts act in inconsistent ways. You know, like,
I'm not disputing that ghosts act in inconsistent ways. That ghosts are mysterious things that we can't possibly understand. But the movie we are in the. You said in your review, David, that boy, what this movie does so well is make you think, what would I do? I'm in the ghost's POV. What would I do? You know what I would fucking do? The same thing again. The same thing again.
But
you just showed me that the ghost could do a thing. You just demonstrated the ghost is smart enough to know the drugs are in that drink. Don't let that drink get to her lips.
It is
some shit.
Shake some shit, do some shit.
Throw a fucking book.
It is inconsistency. These aren't.
Watches her drink it the second time and then runs downstairs to the brother and then wakes him up. Like, if you could do shit to wake the brother up, do that shit in the first room that you were in where she was gonna. I think
we just acknowledged though. We just said you accept that the whole idea of the ghosts are like inconsistent, right? And these aren't superheroes who learn to use their powers better and better over time. There are points where the ghost like tries to directly like tell like wake up the sister or like wake up that character and other characters and manipulate them directly, and it can't do that. I do like the ultimate thing is like, oh, I gotta go back here. Let's try this. This is like it's like a mystery game. Almost, I was like, oh, you're interacting with this object is not quite working. Goes back, can actually have the connection with its old body or something, and is able to wake them up. Like there are things, yeah, it's not fully consistent. I kind of bought the drama of it though.
The brother wakes up.
The ghost wakes himself up, basically.
Right, I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, but from the boy's perspective, he has been woken up.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he knows he's been drugged, which I think is a stretch, that anybody waking up from having just had a alcoholic drink and waking up disoriented immediately understands the situation. But he goes running upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
This dude that he considers to be his best bud
mm-hmm.
is in the room with his sister, and the first thing he does is tackle the guy through the window. That's the immediate response to that situation. I don't buy it for a second.
I mean, it feels like the ghost is almost like it's like Navi in Zelda 64, right? It's like, hey, listen, go up there, do the thing. It's like it's conveying one piece. We don't know, is the ghost controlling him by that point, or is she just like
you are doing so much work for this movie that the movie doesn't do?
Because it's not all explained, many gaps man.
That this movie does not.
Can I just throw ideas out there, Jeff? Like, yes, I understand the movie. The movie doesn't. You don't have to say it's all dumb. The movie. I understand you think this movie is dumb. I understand it's not in the movie. I'm presenting to you ideas. And one thing, it does trigger the brother to kind of go up. I don't think it's actually controlling them or something, but like at that point where you're like the crazy blonde guy is just doing a creepy 7-esque slow kill or something to this girl. It's like, I think we're all a little heightened. And I think the reaction of the brother just kind of makes sense. Like the ghost like, hey, wake the fuck up and go save your sister. Like, I don't know what it conveys, but it says something to the brother, like in the noise that we hear in the sound mix. So
I don't believe that there's any human being that thinks their best friend is hanging out with them, then passes out. They're jolted awake. They run upstairs. The first thing they will do without saying a single word is tackle that person through a second floor window. It makes no fucking sense. It comes out of nowhere, and it's literally like the most as with every single thing in this movie, in my opinion. It is the most contrived, easy, lazy conceit of the script. It's we needed this to happen.
What makes more sense though, Jeff? Like, I'm just saying, like, he runs up, he knows he's alone with his sister. He and his sister are here. The guy is here too that he invited. Should he have a nice conversation while the guy is laid out over his passed out sister with a piece of plastic over her face? Like, how does that conversation begin other than get the fuck away from my sister?
Yes. Okay. Get the fuck away from my sister. Then it escalates and there's a struggle, and then somehow they go out the window. Not like this weird, like this movie. Everything is the laziest, shortest distance between 2 points, contrived BS, in my opinion. Like all of it. Like this kid's like MO, where he thinks he could just keep murdering girls in their bedroom, and none of it doesn't hold up to the slightest bit of scrutiny, in my opinion. None of this movie does. Even to the point of, I mean, you guys seem to know people like this. I felt like the idea of a mom just deciding that one child is her favorite happens ridiculous.
All the time. Happens all the time.
It did not seem justified in this movie. It just felt like an arbitrary distinction.
I will say it was a little over the top.
A little over the top.
How the movie played it, but I've seen things like that play out. You know.
And I think that family dynamic is interesting and feels real and authentic to me. Like the dad who is, okay, I've married this type A, tiger mom. Basically, I'm going to take a backseat ride, let her control things. And now he is like having to step up and say more. The point where he's like, you have 2 kids, I have felt that in so many families where I see parents prioritize one over the other, especially when one is like the stereotypical jock or the stereotypical like popular kid. It happens. And it feels like, to me, that it felt authentic. Even the like evil villain blonde boy, the way he talks to the girl and uses the language of support and inclusivity, like, this is all your choice, you're all in control. That feels so evil to me, but also like that is something sociopaths have been doing and are known to do. So even that, like, even to the point where he is giving his like tearful, the world is against me, I need to murder people speech, like, it feels so close to like people I have met and are not friends with, but I'm like, oh yeah, you are a sociopath. the way you look at the world or the way you interact with the world or something feels, those bits of the movie felt real to me. So even though he has a lot of it's contrived, there's enough in this movie that rings true. There was like, I understood this family, kind of understood the situation with that weirdo blonde boy as well.
I think here's what I'm learning about us talking about this film is, I guess when I started watching this movie, I already have built into, like, I've seen movies like The Conjuring or other
the
ghost
others,
stories.
the others,
like ghosts act in like complete nonsensical ways all the time. So that's like built into my assumptions of like,
agreed.
The ghost in this movie is gonna like do random shit, and like sometimes they're not gonna know what they're doing. Like I already assumed that was gonna happen. Why did it knock the glass out this time and didn't the other time? Because it's a ghost. Because ghosts don't act, in ways. Now, I can relate to the idea that is not a satisfying movie-going experience for you, Jeff.
I just think that the distinction here is like it's a different calculus, because as you yourself pointed out,
right? Because
what
you're in the
You
perspective.
to do is be in that POV. I think like the ghost, and if it's like, well, you can't because ghosts think all wacky.
That's right. It's putting you in the POV of the maddeningly inconsistent character. It's putting you in the POV of the character that doesn't behave rationally. There's something kind of interesting in that, in my opinion.
I disagree. End result of that is maddening and off-putting.
It is maddening. Probably maddening for the ghosts too. But I also feel the same for the humans. I think people under duress do not behave perfectly rationally. I think people do crazy things and like lash out in ways that you do not expect. So, by that scene where the ghost trashes his room is the scene where the brother talks about how he basically, set up this girl a prank and, shared a sex pic of her or a naked picture of her. That whole thing just felt like that story is so disgusting. The dad is off in the corner being like, oh, this is great. You're doing this. The sister is there. The mother is like, apparently almost like, it feels like just going along with the story. I was like, hey, yeah, this is great.
That was psychotic, honestly. Psychotic. When she's like really excited about it.
But then the reaction of the ghost being like, it's sort of like you getting to relive your life and seeing how much of a piece of shit you are. The ghost slowly starts to realize like, it's the problem. I'm the problem. It's me. It's actually been me the whole time. That made me like, actually, once we see the ending, kind of locks a lot of that stuff in place to me.
All right.
Well, I'm glad you guys liked it. I don't understand how.
I'm glad you like Robert Zemeckis is here, Jeff. We all have our have our likes.
A movie about something.
I'm actually surprised that Jeff. I'm not surprised that Jeff didn't love it. But I'm surprised that Jeff hated it so much.
There's so much going on here.
There's so many things that are Jeff coded, like
long takes,
like long takes, and people just being able to play off each other and act.
Agreed. I do like that stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Also, does the ending of here better? You get to go outside the house
shot
and
for shot.
You earn it. You earn leaving the house because you actually accomplished something. Movie. So yeah.
All right. Anyway. Well, despite some of the things that we said today, at the end of the day, it is really impressive that Steven Soderbergh made a movie. And we hope he gets to keep making them for a long time to come.
Seriously.
Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.